HarperCollins presents Stand By Me by S.D. Robertson. Read by Luci Fish. Prologue. Pain. That was the last thing he remembered. Excruciating, relentless, all-encompassing pain. The kind that focuses your mind absolutely, driving out all other thoughts as it pierces through your defences with shuddering ease. The past, the future, neither existed at that moment. There was only the present, rolling in ultra-slow motion. No air, no up or down. A rag doll on a spin cycle, his tears invisible, his cries unheard. That pain, dwarfing every other feeling. Had it been there a moment, or forever? He just wanted it to end. And finally, after rising to a blinding crescendo of agony, it did. Blissful nothingness swooped down from the heavens above and engulfed him. His return to consciousness was gradual and unexpected. As he became aware of himself again, it was as a detached series of thoughts and memories floating in the darkness. The echo of his torment remained in the background, a low hum, gone, but not forgotten. It was this way for some time. Then, hidden within that low hum, he began to hear the faint murmur of something else. Was that someone whispering? He had to strain to hear it, so quiet was the sound. But the harder he concentrated, the more he strove to tune in, the louder it grew, until eventually he identified a voice, androgynous in tone. It took longer still to comprehend the actual words, delivered in a sing-song manner that was neither quite human nor robotic. At first he heard what appeared to be gibberish, another language perhaps, but not one he recognised. And yet as he focused his mind on the sound, piece by piece, word by word, he gradually began to understand. It was one sentence, repeated on loop. Follow the light to its source and find yourself. Light? What light? There was only darkness here. Wasn't there? He looked all around, saw nothing. And then the briefest flicker of white in the far distance. It was barely anything, and yet it was something. Something that wasn't pain. A purpose. Chapter 1. Now. Friday, 20th of July, 2018. What time had Mike started drinking? He'd seemed merry when Lisa had got home from work, but she'd let it go. It had been nice to see him smiling for once, even if it was artificially induced, and she'd assumed he'd only had a couple of beers. It must have been considerably more than that, though, for him to be so far gone now. It was no secret that her husband liked to tipple. In recent weeks, they'd spoken several times about how the frequency of his drinking had increased since he'd stopped working. She'd voiced her fears that it was getting out of control, and he'd argued otherwise. At best, this had come in the form of calm reassurances that he wouldn't let it escalate too far. At worst, it had been a slanging match, with him shouting at her to get off his back, and her calling him an alcoholic. Not that Lisa actually thought he was. Not yet. She just wanted to shock him into cutting back before it really did get out of hand. But maybe she'd misjudged the situation. "What's wrong?" Mike asked. "Don't you like it here?" Lisa wanted to point out that he was slurring his words, despite the fact it was barely 8 p.m. and they were still waiting for their starter to arrive at the restaurant. But at the same time, she didn't want to ruin the evening. He'd arranged it as a surprise to celebrate their wedding anniversary, an unusually thoughtful gesture. So much so that when he'd told her this morning, before she'd set off for school, her initial response had been to wonder what he'd done wrong and was trying to make up for. She'd not vocalised this, thankfully. Nor had she expressed her concern about the cost of a decent meal out in Manchester. They could barely afford to get takeaway in their village, never mind get a taxi to and from the city centre for the privilege of enjoying overpriced food and drink. That was the cold, hard truth. But she'd weighed up the matter at work, where it had been the final day of term before the summer holidays, and decided to throw caution to the wind for once and enjoy a rare night out. So Lisa had dug a pair of heels and a favourite black dress out of the wardrobe. She'd used the curling tongs to add some life to her dull, limp blonde hair for the first time in ages, and made more than the usual cursory effort with her makeup. Mike had worn the smart navy shirt she'd bought for his birthday, swapping his usual jeans and trainers for chinos and tan brogues.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?